And how are you doing, Tadao?
Basically, I suffer from diabetes,
Oh,
but I'm taking medicine for high blood sugar
yeah.
and high pressure, blood pressure and cholesterol.
Okay, good.
So I feel that I'm very healthy now.
Good. Well, the medication covers the diabetes and the heart. That's good.
Yeah.
And how are you, Anne?
I'm well, thanks. Well, thanks, Sandara.
Good.
We've got full on winter here.
Oh, I see. Yeah, of course, it's full on summer here. We've had a lot of rain, but yeah, it's a pleasant day today. Opportunity to do some washing and tidying up.
Good.
And listen to Dhamma, of course.
Yeah.
That's always good.
Yeah, we've still got snow and ice. I was just out walking. It's treacherous in some places. Lovely to look at. Lovely to look at.
Yes, I imagine.
Yeah, it is. It's very nice. Are you there, John? Sounds like not yet. Oh, we've got 14 people here. That's great.
Hi, Sarita. Sarita is Al's daughter.
Yes.
Very glad to see you again, Sarita. So glad you joined.
Oh, lovely to see you. I'm sorry if I was off the video. I have a cold, so I'm trying not to cough.
That's okay.
But
You can just
thanks for having
listen
me
in.
here. My partner Ryder is also joining us as well, but we'll try not to be too loud without coughing.
What is his name?
Ryder.
Ryder. Okay. Hope to see you both in Australia again one day.
Yeah, we're hoping that
Seems
the
a long
border
time,
will open.
Sarita.
Hi,
How are you?
Sarita.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hello,
How are you?
Ryder. Nice to know you.
Nice to know you.
Where are you now, Sarita?
We're in
Hey.
Brooklyn, New York.
Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
You're
Just
beginning to
hiding
sound
away.
more American now, Sarita.
I realized that my partner has an American accent, so I kind of just picked up. Have to go back home to get some Australian accent back.
Yeah. Bring him to Manly.
Yeah.
Are there any topics that you've discussed with Ryder, or any topics you would like to bring up for you at all?
I haven't actually discussed anything with him because I realized that when I try to explain something in my head, the language barrier, I suppose, because sometimes when I think about Dhamma, it would be in Thai, and then when I try to translate it into English, it's just kind of, I don't quite have the language yet. And also I kind of want to start from the beginning actually, and yeah, kind of pretend like I've never heard it before and start all over again.
Good. So we'll try to explain any Pali terms that are used because Ryder won't be familiar with them, and you can just put your hand up if anything's not clear and we'll try to explain it for you both.
Thank you.
Anyway, glad you could join, and I hope you saw the links I sent to your mum and you for some of the discussions with your dad that we had edited.
I did. I'm very excited to have a little look. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Anyway, very glad to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And does Ryder have any background in Buddhism or previous connection with anything to do with Buddhism?
Purely out of curiosity.
Yeah.
No formal study.
Right. Good.
Is there anything about Buddhism that you find interesting, Ryder?
Everything that I've run across so far has been quite interesting. Yeah, I studied a lot of Tara Brach's teachings and Jack Kornfeld, and so yeah, always looking to expand my awareness a little bit more.
And when you read and hear about, well, everyone knows that life is just now, but when you read that there are just different realities arising and falling away, and none of them are self, no self to be found, just different realities like seeing and hearing and thinking, but not I see, I hear, or I think. Does this make sense to you?
It does. It does. I don't think that I have embodied that experience, but I would say that topically it makes sense.
Just at an intellectual level, thinking level. Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
The concept makes sense.
And we can go further because we can say, for example, at this moment of seeing, that what is seen, we think that it's your room full of belongings, or we think it's different people on the screen or different flowers, but actually what is seen is just that which is visible, just the visible object. And then it's the thinking which thinks about rooms and people and flowers and different backgrounds. But actually what is seen is just visible object, different from what is thought about. So even when there's an idea that it's something that is seen or something that is heard, this is also an aspect of utter view or self-view. So that's why we discuss a lot in detail about life at this moment, to understand that there are just different realities, those that experience, like seeing and hearing, and those realities that don't experience anything, such as the sound that is heard or the visible object is seen. And the rest of life is thinking about different ideas, different concepts on account of the realities that are experienced. So we discuss in more and more detail to really appreciate how subtle it is and how there really is no self to be found, no self that can do anything, that can control anything, and no thing, no person, no image that is seen or heard. So it's quite deep. Yeah. I'll pass on to Ajahn, who may like to also discuss in more detail with you.
Are you here, Ajahn?
And even when one has a cold, like Sarita's not feeling well, and for many people that's life at the moment, but it seems like I have a cold for a day or a week, or I'm sick, or I have a sore throat for so long. But actually what we learn is that whatever arises in life is just for a moment and then it's gone. So there's a moment of discomfort through the body sense when one has the painful feeling that we associate with a sore throat. But at moments of seeing and moments of hearing, there is no sore throat at those moments. And when there's thinking about the discomfort, thinking about the sore throat, the thinking is real, but the ideas of me and the sore throat and the cold are the ideas. When there's thinking about something else, thinking about the flower, then where is the sore throat? Where is the person one was just thinking about? So actually whatever arises in life is just for a moment. the bodily discomfort, the painful feeling, and then it's gone. But because of the thinking again and again, conditioned by the memory about it, it seems that it lasts a long time, and we take it for my pain, my discomfort, my sickness. But when there's the understanding that it's just for a moment and gone, life is a little easier, a little more easily. And I'll just mention Sarita and Al that some of the other people here are in North America. That's why we have this time, and some are in other places in Asia.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Tadao.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please do.
Last week, we are talking about Sabbe Dhamma Anatta, yeah?
Right.
So, Chitta, Cetasika, Rupa, and Nibbana are Anatta. But I have a question about concept. Is concept included in this category, or concept is not classified as anatta?
Well, concepts, the ideas like the sickness and the flower, they're not realities, they're not dhammas. So when we say sabbe dhamma anatta, it's referring to all realities, all the conditioned realities, and also the unconditioned reality, which is nibbana. When it comes to concepts, they cannot be atta, because there is no atta. Atta means self, rider. So they cannot be self. So in that sense, they are anatta, because actually everything is anatta, because there's no atta to be found. But when we're talking about sabbe dhamma or dhammas, it's actually referring to the realities.
Could you repeat? So concept is
It's not a dhamma,
but
it's not a reality. So it's not sabbe dhamma anatta. It's not a dhamma, but because there is no atta ever to be found, concepts cannot be said to be atta. So in that sense, they are anatta, because there is no atta.
Okay. Thank you.
But they're not real, so they're not dhammas.
Okay. With regard to concept, do we
I'm sorry?
concerning concept, do we need panya to understand what concept is? Or,
I think
we do not need any panya to understand what concept is.
everyone thinks about concepts all the time. So you could say everyone is already an expert in concepts and conventional truth. But the reason the Buddha spent his life talking about realities, dhammas, is because when there is the understanding of realities, then there is the understanding of what is not reality. So when it's clear, for example, that it's just visible object that's seen, that it's just sound that is heard, it's also clear that the voice of a person or the birds on the tree are not real, they are imagined, they are panyati, they're the concepts that make known the realities that are experienced. So that's why the study has to be of realities. When realities are understood, no doubt about what are concepts.
And concepts do not have a characteristic, a unique characteristic. So seeing or visible object or sound well, these are Dhammas because they have a characteristic by which they can be known by Panya.
Yeah.
Concepts don't have any characteristic.
Mm.
So there's no need, if you like, for them to be understood by Panya. They are not mistaken for something that they are not.
Mm-hmm.
For Rider, Panya is understanding.
Mm. Okay. Thank you.
Are you here now, Ajahn?
Yes สวัสดีค่ะทุกคนค่ะ
Sawadika.
สวัสดีครับท่านอาจารย์ สวัสดีครับ
At the beginning, Ajahn, I was just talking to Sarita and her friend Rida. Rida is new to the discussions, so we may have to explain any Pali terms because they're new for him. And he has studied a little bit about Buddhism, and I was just talking a little bit about the realities of life now and the difference between those realities which experience and those that are experienced.
So Kuntadao is the Panyati now concept.
Yes, all the time.
So what is it at that very moment?
But sometimes I wonder, do you have to clearly understand what concept is, or we just accept concept with our ignorance?
But when it's there, it means that there can be the understanding of it, right? Because it's there. But what is it in truth? What is there? What is there?
I think it's something we thought about.
So it's the object of thinking, right?
Yes.
That's it. Because we do not have just the thinking or experiencing the reality, but also experience. It means that it knows what is there to be known as something. That's why we do not understand what is there as it is, right? Just right now. Visible object is not directly experienced yet. So we just talk about the truth of visible object, what is there. But now, why does visible object does not appear? Because there is thinking about shape and form of that which is seen, but not as it is. It makes known as something all the time. That's why there is the absolute reality. Therefore, absolute realities, citta, cetasika, rupa, and nibbana, which has the characteristic of its own to be known as is so real as absolute reality. But what is taken is the thinking about the shape and form of the rapidity of the succession of the arising and falling away as something, nimitta.
Yes.
That's why as soon as we close the eyes, nothing at all. But when we open the eyes, so many things around, taken for doll or shoes or whatever. And that is the concept, the idea, taken from that which appears as different nimitta.
Yeah.
So we live in the world of concept, but because not understanding the truth of the reality which is now appearing. We take this for shoe, we take that for pencil, and so on. But what is the absolute truth? It's so true, so real, it's not known. That's why that has to be the enlightened moment of the Buddha. Because of his great accumulation of right understanding of what is there appearing in life, from life to life, on and on and on, until it's time to realize the truth, which is so deep. That's why, after his enlightenment, Buddha said, Dhamma is so very deep, very profound, very difficult to discern. See, why did he say so? To remind everyone that what is there as a truth is so very deep and no one knows its truth at all. That's why he taught for anyone who is interested to understand what is there as it is. Only that, just like any kind of learning, any subject, just to understand what it is. Now we talk about the moment just to understand what it is. And now there is the understanding of the absolute realities as they are for Chitta, Chittasika, Rupa, and Nibbana. And what is the door and things? It's the nimitta of that which is the mark and sign of that which is left, which arises when the reality has arisen, fallen away in succession, very rapidly unknown, to take it for something. So nimit, so banyati concept is the object of citta. If there is no citta, can they be thinking about that? Impossible. So the truth is that it is the object of thinking about its shape and form and take it for something from life to life, day to day, and now too. That's why learning to understand what is there now is to understand what is the truth of what is there in a moment, what is there. Otherwise, it's taken for I and things while it's not at all. So is there concept now?
Yes. When we live in the world of concept, we
and
live
this moment of thinking. So concept is only object of thinking.
Yeah. We live with ignorance. And when we live with ignorance, it's sort of an easy world. We do not need strive for anything. We just live sabai. But it's ignorance, and it's sort of very sad reality, is what I think.
Because we can't understand what Buddha said about each word which is there now, which is not known yet, to be known as it is, to understand its truth as actually. It just so very short, just be there, arising and falling away, unknowingly. What appears is the left of that which is the mark of the arising and falling away, so rapidly as something with shape and form. Nimitta of all sankhara dhamma, conditioned realities which arise and fall away all the time. For example, when we talk about the nama, the reality which arises and falls away, a moment of seeing right now is that which experiences what is there. We don't have to name or call it anything, but is it only one kind of that which experiences the object? More than that, unknown, because so rapidly. That's why Buddha pointed to the truth of each one as it is, to be known, so it can support or enroot the idea of no one there at all, because the truth is no one there. And even that which arises falls away completely instantly. So it's not there anymore. And this is the absolute truth, which Buddha said so deep and so subtle, to be reminded that it's now so very difficult to understand its truth, which is so deep, as how can that which is seen and its truth is just that which can impinge on the eye base only. See, otherwise it cannot be seen. And if there's no reality which arises and experiences it, which we call seeing, it's not known at all. And this is each moment. There must be the reality which arises and experience. We call that reality, citta, the chief of experiencing only the characteristic of the object writing one at a time. Who knows? It's now. See, just think about that which is known. But what about the reality which arises and see now? I'm no thinking, no thought about it at all. So that we are living in the world of ignorance and concept, taking that which is not there anymore as something permanent, even right now, anytime, when it's not the understanding of truth of that which is now there as it is, instead of as something, as concept of it.
Yeah, I have a question. When I go for shopping, yeah, when I'm walking, yeah, often Pali passages, for instance, from Dhammapada, is recited in my mind. And for instance, Sabbe Dhamma Anattati, Yada Panyaya Passati, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. These passages come into my mind. But can we say that it's a kind of sila pata, it's kind of a wrong practice?
All are thinking, right? But what is thinking? That should be known because it's that at moment of thinking. What is there at moment of thinking and what things? It's there. Anytime in a day, it's not known. But what is the truth of it at that very moment? There must be the reality, which at that moment does not see, does not hear, but think. But the truth is the same, that which can experience, and it arises to experience, and it now experiences and falls away.
Yeah.
No matter we call it seeing or thinking about this or that, or smelling, liking, disliking, that which experiences an object. Otherwise, how can there be life? There must be an object which is attached at moment of experiencing. But the moment of experience, the citta, the chief, the reality, with the chief of reality which experiences is there. What is it? It just arises to experience the characteristic of what is there, not other reality like or dislike at all. Each one has its own characteristic when it arises. For example, when attachment arises, it's not the seeing, it's experiencing the object, but it likes the object which is seen because it arises together with the citta which experiences that object. See, so what is there? What is there now? What is there at any time? Walking, drinking, writing, anytime. There must be the reality which arises and experience what is there as it is. But it's not known as it is because the rapidity of the succession of the arising and falling away is so very, very rapidly. So we live in the world of concept.
Yeah.
And I think, Tadao, this was the point in the discussion that you may have been referring to when you talked about the thinking that was discussed last week, that even when it seems to be about the Dhamma, about the Buddha's teachings, when it's just thinking about the story without understanding, with a lot of interest, then actually it's attachment that's there, thinking about this and that, and thinking about words and definitions and different stories we've heard, but forgetting about now and what is real at this moment, and that forgetting that what is most important is what is most precious is the understanding of life at this very moment, and that the life at this moment, the seeing, the hearing, the thinking is conditioned and anatta. So it's not my story or my interest. So it's bound to be like that. I mean, most of the day there's thinking about different stories that there's an interest in. But even at those moments, there can be understanding that it is just thinking, just thinking with attachment most of the time. So the understanding can come in any time at all to understand what is life right then and there, right at this moment.
And if I could just add a word, as Sarah and John have explained, for us, thinking, of which there's a lot, because the mind is thinking all the time when it's not experiencing a sensed or object. It's basically thinking about sensed or objects that have been experienced, past or past, present. So thinking all day long, mostly with attachment, mostly unwholesome mental state, because there's no particular level of wholesomeness. Mm-hmm. But we should remember that even for the enlightened being, there's also thinking all the time when there's not sensed or objects being experienced. And I make that comment because you said when we live in the world of concepts, we live in ignorance. It shouldn't, there's no necessary connection between thinking in terms of concepts and ignorance. Concepts are not conducive to ignorance or anything. So it's just one's accumulated tendencies coming forth. But there's nothing about thinking in concepts as such that needs to be dealt with, as it were, that is going to be eradicated. It's the underlying tendencies which, based on wrong view, that will become reduced, eventually eradicated, if it's the case, enlightenment, that the Buddha taught, that need to be understood. It's because of not understanding, not seeing realities as they truly are, that there is attachment and ignorance, not because there's thinking in concepts.
Okay. Thank you.
And today I was just going to add that, you mentioned before about reciting, for example, Sabbe Dhamma Anattati. If there was the belief that just by reciting that Sabbe Dhamma Anattati and saying it on and on, then that could be a type of, or probably would be a type of silabbata paramasa. However, on the other hand, when sometimes there is the thought of Dhamma, be it Pali or whatever, reminders that we may get, that can be a valuable reminder about the nature of Dhamma, not just words that may not really be considered carefully and just thought about and dismissed. So it's always going to depend upon the quality of the chitta at that particular moment or moments after, when we are reflecting on what we've thought about. We can reflect wisely on what we've thought about, or obviously conversely, we can think unwisely.
Yeah, I'm not trying to have lots of sati and panya by reciting Pali passages, but when Pali passages is in my mind, then I feel very soothed, very comfortable.
Yeah, they can. Sorry, you keep going.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, that can be a condition for some level of sati or panya. Panya will know that. As we know, the development of sati and panya is slow, and we have to be patient. So there may be moments of kusala. At those moments, there may be moments, I think, as Sarah suggested earlier, of attachment or a kusala. It's and in the beginning, I think often a lot of this thing is jumbled up, because often people think that just by thinking about Pali passage can be kusala, but we know that that is not always the case.
Yeah.
And now,
I wonder a bit.
and I think that's what Achan and Sarah has been trying to say, is that the point of the Buddha's teaching is to understand what appears now, and it doesn't matter what just passed away. It's just what appears now that's to be understood.
I think that it's natural if you have read a phrase many times that it will pop up in your thoughts like by itself. The same way that if you have listened to a certain song in the radio or something, it will pop up by itself. But to call that practice, that's like something else. I mean, independently of being wrong or right practice, it makes me wonder a little bit about the meaning of the word practice, what it is, right? That's my comment.
Are you asking about the word practice as appearing in the text, or are you asking about practice as we use it, as it's used, commonly used?
Yeah, I think I'm asking about both because just like to see what it's actually meant by practice in Buddhism differently than what we call practice.
I think there is a difference, and it's good to consider. But briefly, to my understanding, in the Dhamma, the word practice does appear from time to time, but it refers to the actual arising of awareness and understanding, not to something that is preliminary to that arising, and that might be done or a situation created that is conducive to the arising of awareness and understanding. It's just when understanding and awareness and understanding do arise is what is meant by practice.
And also, you might want to consider, Roti, that in the teachings, the factors of the Eightfold Path are mentioned, the right path and also the wrong path are mentioned, each one. So whenever there's wrong understanding, wrong thinking, I mean, there are factors. So that may be the reference to wrong practice. That may be when there's wrong factors, then it's wrong practice.
So the right and the wrong regarding practice is defined by the understanding behind.
Yeah, understanding, right understanding or wrong understanding, right thinking, wrong thinking, right mindfulness, wrong mindfulness.
So developing that understanding cannot be called practice.
Well, we have pariyati and patipati. So also there is levels of understanding. So
why do you want to call it practice, right practice, when we're talking about the development of understanding? Roti, why would you like to call it?
Yeah, I think because the term practice somehow denotes like something that is happening, you know, like what will make something happen.
Right. So when practice is used, it's usually referring to the wrong understanding. So if we're talking about the right understanding, there isn't any practice or something to be done. No one who can do anything. No set of steps to follow.
Right. So that's how understanding is developed by,
it develops.
not
So
by someone.
Exactly. So bhavana refers to the development of understanding, not someone who follows any practice, no practice to be followed. It's the development of understanding.
So practice and bhavana are not the same thing?
Bhavana means the development of understanding.
Development
No matter,
in the sense of increase.
So practice
not
is the
development
result of
sense.
bhavana.
so no
Bhavana
matter
brings it into practice.
So the development of understanding, no matter it's now or when eating lunch or when going to the movie, it refers to the moments of understanding of reality that increase and develop and accumulate when they arise, not any practice, not anything to be done.
Not something preliminary to the arising of understanding.
I've
That's why
often, go ahead, Sarah.
I was going to say, and that's why we learn about the different realities. This is for Ao and Raida, about different kinds of consciousness, which we call citta, different mental factors, cetasikas, and those realities that don't experience anything, the rupas, because this is life, not anyone who can do anything or follow any practice. There are just these different realities which are conditioned, which arise and fall away. And this is when we talk about not self, what it's referring to. Nothing to be done by anyone. So practice is not a good translation for the development of understanding.
So why when the Pali phrases arise in Tadao's mind are they called wrong practice? Because they don't arise by the effort of anybody, they arise by themselves.
So
by condition.
Right. So then it's not a practice of any kind, is it?
So it's just thinking by conditions. And it depends when that thinking arises, whether it's with any right understanding, as Sundara said, or wrong understanding, or just with ignorance as usual. Last week, I think Ajahn was mentioning about association with the wise and was bringing about the truth, like we read about in the Mangala Sutta. But even this, it's not about how long someone was in the company of the Buddha or how long one reads the text, but it's referring to the moments of understanding, of wise considering when hearing the truth. Otherwise, there's no association with the wise at those moments. So it's the same with the Dhammapada phrases that run through Tadao's head. At the moments when there's no understanding, then there's no association with the Buddha's teachings. Only when there are moments of understanding, wise reflection, only at those moments is there understanding and association with the wise. So it always comes back to this moment, this moment. And
so those moments of wise consideration, are they called right practice or practice?
why call it right practice at all? Because they're just moments of wise reflection, moments of understanding. It's not practice.
Oh, it's not practice. So when is it practice? I thought that practice was that moment when wise reflection arose. That's what I understand the definition of that.
So if we're talking about pariyati or patipati, we're talking about different levels when understanding arises. So when understanding arises, it is the arising of understanding with kusala cittas. It's not a practice in the sense of anything being done at all, as we usually consider the term. So for myself, I don't use the word practice, except when referring to wrong practice. When there's the idea that going to a center or closing one's eyes or focusing on an object, these are examples of wrong practice. But I don't refer to any right practice.
I don't, just to put that point. Oh, sorry, you can continue, Rotti.
Yeah, why
if
not?
You like.
Why not to refer to right practice? I mean, we have the word practice all the time in the Buddhist scriptures. Right practice and wrong practice. Why not? What?
That's true. Yeah, that's true, Rotti. It appears in English translations. I think Jonathan has made a helpful distinction there. But when one believes that this, sorry, I was just saying that I think Jonathan has made a helpful distinction that when patipatti or practice, which is the translation of the Pali word or one of the words, you can use many different words. I don't think it really has to hinge on the use of a particular word or not. I think that can be misleading and possibly or potentially unhelpful. It's always going to depend on our understanding. So whether we use this or that word as a translation of the Pali word, I almost think is irrelevant. It'll always depend upon our understanding. So I think Jonathan made a helpful distinction when he mentioned if one believes that one has to do something preliminary as opposed to something that happens as a consequence of understanding, they're two different matters and they're two different versions, you could say, of the idea of practice or patipatti. And if we look at those four different factors that are called the Sotapattiyanga, or the four factors of Sotapattiyamagga, when we have this, first of all, meeting the right teacher, having the right teacher, sapurisa sangse, or meeting the right teacher, or meeting the right guide, Dhamma sawanam, hearing what that wise person says, yoniso manasikara, considering carefully what we've heard from that wise teacher. And then the last one is Dhamma patipatti. So we're following in accordance with Dhamma. So the word there, patipatti, is used as a following in accordance with what you've heard from the wise teacher. So I think, getting back to what Jonathan made, that distinction that it's not something that's done preliminary as a preliminary factor. It's something that happens as a consequence of understanding. And I feel that's a good distinction to make.
What was the last thing you said, Sandra? Sorry.
Sorry, I'm just putting the thing back on. I just said that I felt Jonathan made a helpful distinction with the use of the word practice. If we believe that it's something we must do first of all or preliminary to the development of understanding, that is unhelpful and potentially wrong, as opposed to if it's something that happens as a consequence of our understanding, which, when Kunsa Kin...
Yeah, I get it.
Okay.
I get it. That was what was not clear about Tadao's statement, because he said that when he went shopping, the Dhammapada phrase will arise in his mind, right? So we don't know. We don't know if he had the intention to bring those phrases up in his mind, or if the phrase arose and then there would be natural wise reflection about the truth through that phrase. That also
I think at the moment of that something like that pops into mind unbidden, but just because one once had the habit of reciting that as a monk or something, then obviously there's no element of practice involved in that. But as he said, he finds it a comfortable thing, and there's
Comfortable.
likely to be the idea of wanting it to persist, continue, or maybe the idea that it's wholesome, therefore there should be more of it. So it's likely that there will be some kind of thinking along those lines, which of course is likely to involve wrong view. So we can't talk about a situation, because a situation is always many different moments and different kinds of moments of consciousness. But just something popping into mind out of habit, a past habit, it cannot be regarded as a kind of practice, wrong practice.
And I think, Roti, it's also, we know that all wrong view and wrong practice comes from the idea of self. So that's what defines wrong practice. If there's the idea of self, the self view, then it is, whatever you decide to do, like as John was saying, with the idea of getting some results, that then it's wrong practice. And in the case of Tadao, if there's no such idea and it's just a habit, like we hear a lot of Dhamma, so we recall, and it can be just thinking without the idea of getting results. So I think,
So maybe,
yeah, go on.
yeah, what defines wrong practice is when it's associated with defilements, right? Maybe not only wrong view, but also attachment, etc.
Okay, let me take the example of studying the Dhamma. Although we know, because that's the point that's being said also about something preliminary, we know that without pariyati, there cannot be patipati. So some people might think that, oh, therefore I must listen and come to Dhamma discussion so that one day I can have direct understanding. And that would be an example of wrong practice, because there's the idea of self.
Ajahn used to use the expression, the practice disease, because usually when people read or hear or study Buddha's teachings, they have the idea of doing something, of focusing on something, of going somewhere, of studying particular terms, or of reciting particular texts. And this is the practice disease that's so common. They think it's the study of the Buddha's teachings, but it's the opposite, it's the wrong path. But even for us, whenever there's the trying to catch the meaning or trying to be aware of a reality or focusing on a particular object like breath or anything else, it is wrong practice at those moments. So this is usually how practice is used. And in terms of developing right understanding, you will never hear Ajahn use the word practice, because it's always associated with the wrong understanding and the idea of someone doing something.
I think that akusala is the disease. I think akusala is the disease, not the word.
You think what? Sorry, I didn't understand what you said, Sumbara.
Let's see, I said akusala is the disease, not the word. The word is not the problem. It's the understanding.
It's the wrong understanding, the taking the path for being something to be done.
I think that's all
wrong
agreed.
understanding of self.
I think that's all agreed, Sarah. I'm thinking that we can make too much about a certain word Word is not the problem. It's the understanding.
So probably the reason why it's called wrong practice is because we're missing the point. We're not seeing the desire or the greed to get something, right?
The idea of self, the attitude that is there
Yeah, self.
when trying. Yes.
That's actually what something that is actually greed or view of self, you're calling it practice. That's why it's wrong.
Self, it's there at those moments. Yes.
You're giving the wrong name, right? Instead of calling it wrong view or calling it desire, you're calling it practice.
Right.
Anyway. Yeah.
I think it's, why don't you ask Ajahn? Ajahn, would you like to add anything more to Rota's comments about practice and practice?
Yes. Usually when we use the word practice, what do you think?
It's attachment and wrong view, actually.
No, we don't talk
What
about
we're calling
understanding or anything. We just talk about the ordinary meaning that people use in a day. Practice, what does it mean?
it means to do something repeatedly in order to get a result.
Is there any rule or system of practicing?
What did you say, Ajahn? Sorry?
Is there any rule or system to practice?
Yeah, usually there is, yeah. I mean, in conventional.
What about the child begin or learn to walk? Is it practice too?
Well, he has to do it repeatedly in order to
be skillful.
In order
to do it so
right.
well, very skillful. So we do not understand what is there now. And when there is the word which can lead to considering the truth from moment to moment, what is, no matter what you call it, practice or developed, it doesn't matter at all, just from nothing and then to be something gradually, little by little, no matter what word is used. So in understanding Dhamma, no particular word which can condition the understanding, but the considering from that word, no matter it is practicing or developing, but it leads to the understanding, the truth of that which is there, which hasn't been understood before at all. No matter what word you use, and the Pali term, that is, nobody can change the meaning that Buddha meant using that word to point to the truth, but it depends on understanding from nothing and then developing the understanding of that gradually, no matter what word you use. Sikha can be used too in Pali, which means learn to understand the truth stage by stage, little by little. So the point is that if people use the word practice with wrong understanding, to practice without any understanding of the truth, because even anytime at moment of listening, talking about Dhamma, it's to understand the truth, the absolute truth. That's the point. We don't mind the word because the word cannot lead to understanding without considering what is there as it is. So is it now the development of understanding by no one, but from learning, and many Cetasikas are there performing that function. See, that is the meaning of no matter what word you use, the best thing is to use Pali term, when there is the understanding of that word, like sikha, to learn, to know, to understand the truth of what is there. That's why there is sila sikha, chitta sikha, and panya sikha in Pali. It depends on word, whether you use this word or that word, but with understanding, right understanding. Otherwise, it's wrong. For example, the meditation center just use the word practice. See, because they think that there must be the method or whatever is used in order to gain or to get what they would like to. But it's not the understanding at all. Whatever that one does, just for the sake of trying to have it like right understanding. They think that if they go somewhere and sit still and concentrate on an object, that can bring about the understanding of the truth. But it's not that at all. So it's not sikha, understanding, and how to understand without hearing and considering about what is there as that word represents. So it depends on understanding, and I think that the word sikha in Pali is the best word. No matter in any language, they can use different words, but depends on whether it is different meaning or right meaning of the truth. So just one is not enough. Understand this meaning, this word, when it's there, it's not enough. That's why it's like training, sikha, or any word you use, just to understand that. You can use the word developing, not by me or anyone, but the way it is. Right understanding arises. Once is not enough. Again and again and again and again. So what, any word, it doesn't matter when there's right understanding. Are we now study sikha? What level? Is it adhisikha yet? Because different stages of understanding is there. So panya and satya, realize the truth, understanding the truth, how much understand of that which is there, which Buddha used the word like citta and cetasika and rupa and many other words, because realities are so many different ones. So now it is sikha, but not yet. Ati sila sikha, ati panya sikha, and ati citta sikha. Ati sila sikha, ati citta sikha, and ati panya sikha. It is the beginning to understand directly the truth of that which has been studied or heard, and have confidence on its truth enough to understand the truth which is there, unknown before. For example, the reality which experiences an object is right now, anytime. Is there enough understanding of it to lead to the moment of directly understand its truth, just one at a time, clearer than now, because there are so many realities appearing now. It seems like at a time, but actually it's not at all. The absolute truth is that there is no one. And in order to experience that as it is, it takes time, hearing again, understanding better and better, deeper and deeper, letting go by right understanding, not by anyone trying to let go. And no matter what word you use, is that Buddha taught. So what word would you use?
Well, I can use bhavana. I can use patipati. I can use sikha. But what's important is to have the right understanding about the meaning of the word, I think. That to develop, to study, to train, to learn, all of those are correct when you have right understanding about that there's no one who can do anything.
That's
Who
right.
can train, who can learn.
Without sikha, how can there be the realization of the absolute truth of what is there now?
And there's also the importance of knowing what is or can be the object of the understanding.
And even the word seeker leads to a lot of misunderstanding because it's commonly translated as study. So when people read about right study, they think about studying the text, studying the book, but seeker, the study or training, refers to the development of understanding, not to the intellectual study of the words and the meanings. So anything that we read, any term we hear will be misunderstood if there isn't enough understanding about different realities.
And the object of awareness and understanding is something that is appearing now and can be directly known by its characteristic. So if there's an idea of studying the computer screen or the person sitting across the table, then that, of course, is not going to permit the development of understanding of a reality.
We cannot hear you, Sarah.
Just getting back to the Pali terms that John was using before, which some people may not be familiar with, the sila sika, the citta sika, and the panya sika. And she mentioned that it's now when there is understanding, when there is the understanding, there is the development of kusala, the development or training of right concentration and right understanding together. But she mentioned it's not adi sila, adi citta, adi panya. Adi means higher. So it's not the direct understanding, the development of satipatthana. When adi is used, it's referring to the development of satipatthana. So the adi sila, the adi citta, and the adi panya refer to the moments of direct understanding of the reality that appears, the higher kusala, the higher concentration, and the higher understanding. So any words in Pali or English can be misunderstood. So as everyone has been stressing, it comes back to the understanding at this moment.
Also, changing the subject, because I think it's clear now. Earlier on, John, he said that there can be thinking about a past sense object or a present sense object. I mean, it's just trying to be a little bit clear that maybe we cannot think about a present sense object, right? Because that sense object is already past also, because the thinking it's not there when the thinking is there, right?
Right, not at the same moment, but I was referring to, like, now one is looking at a screen or monitor of some kind, and there is the experiencing of the visible object, and the idea of the screen or monitor is thinking about visible object that is now being experienced, as opposed to thinking about something one did yesterday, which doesn't relate to thinking in relation to sensitive objects currently being experienced.
Also, Roti, as we often are reminded about what's now, although it's still thinking about what has already appeared and already gone, we can see that it's different from thinking about what was yesterday or what happened before. So we're thinking about, as John is saying, thinking about what's in front of us now is now. It's better to use the word now, although technically, because what we hear about Dhamma, we know that it's already fallen away. That's a different thing. So even when we are reminded about what appears now, it's the word, there's a different meaning between now and before.
And in fact, even to understand what someone is saying, there needs to be a lot of thinking about the sound being experienced, because what is heard is just sound. At the first moment of experiencing sound, there's no idea of words or speaker or meaning. That's all a product of masses of thinking that follows each moment of experiencing of sound. And this is different from the conventional idea of thinking. The conventional idea of thinking, as we know, is being lost in thoughts of some kind, or typified by being lost in thoughts. We don't normally consider formulating concept of what is being seen and heard now as being thinking, but it is a kind of thinking that is going on unrecognized all the time.
And also we have learned that there's actually no now being experienced, because it's nimitta when it's experienced.
Sorry, there's
Exactly.
no what being experienced? No now?
Exactly. So even when it's vipassana jnana, the very, very clear understanding of the reality actually is the nimitta of the reality that has already fallen away. How can it be the lobha that is arising, that appears? Is always the nimitta of the lobha, or the nimitta of the seeing, or the nimitta of the visible object that appears, but it's referred to as the present object because it's the chittas arise, the realities arise and fall away so fast. So it's referred to it's the understanding of the present object, even though actually it's the nimitta of the reality that has just fallen away.
Well, the nimitta, it's not of a reality that has just fallen away. It's of plenty of realities that have just fallen away.
So rapidly, but it's the characteristic of the reality that has just gone, but it appears as a present object because it's the characteristic of that reality itself that appears, that is directly known. like you said, the understanding has to become more and more refined. Like in the beginning, you said you just heard this concept or reality and it seemed straightforward. And then one begins to consider what is meant by nimitta and what actually is the present object. And all the answers get solved, because without understanding about nimitta, it doesn't quite make sense. So that's why we appreciate and consider more and more details.
And when you mentioned experiencing or knowing about now, it's worth remembering that the Buddha doesn't talk about knowing the present moment or understanding the present moment. He talked about understanding what is real at the present moment and what is real and appearing. So it is not having a better understanding of the present moment, because that is not specific enough. That doesn't direct one's mind to the idea that it is something that can be directly experienced by its characteristic. That will be the object of understanding.
Yeah, we tend to call realities, the knowing of realities, we tend to call them the present moment, right? But it's actually not the present moment, it's just the experiencing of a reality.
I think also, I like the point that Jonathan made too, because the idea of now can be a very obscure concept. And sometimes you hear a lot of people talking about, be in the now, and some, all those very obscure concepts. And the Dhamma is very, very explicit about the nature of reality that appears. And so it's very different. I think for that reason, I think Johnson's made a very good point. It's not just about the now, and you could construct whatever concept you like about the now, but the Dhamma is a lot more explicit about and refers to the type of reality that appears, not an obscure concept like now or whatever other ideas that people have about these different.
You have now and you have here also.
Sorry, say it again, please, Roti. What was that word you were saying?
Together with now, you also have here.
Yeah, the here and now, both are concepts. Both are just concepts, the here and now.
I'm curious, Roti. I still didn't hear that word you were trying to say. Can you spell it for me?
Here and now. Here.
Oh, here and now. Oh, yeah, of course, I've got you now. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Quite a common phrase in the 60s, wasn't 70s or something like that. Be here now. Well, that can mean anything, really.
Actually, Sundara, as with the word practice and later Sarah brought up study, be here now, all these words in English, they have the connotation of someone being here now. And study is someone studying, someone practice. So it's what we hear outside the Dhamma, outside, our discussions, it's all about self.
No, I think that's a very good point. I think it's a very good point, Sukin. We forget about the nature of Dhamma, and that phrase that Tadao was saying before, sabbe Dhamma anatta. And even those words, as we know, they can be misunderstood, but they can be good reminders when we have understanding, or when there is understanding, however you like to express that. But I think that's a very good point also, Sukin, that all these ideas are just conceptual constructs which don't have to be very helpful at all. As we know, they can be completely misleading and unhelpful. I was just looking at the Pali that the word that Tanajan used a moment ago. I was familiar with it, but they're called the Sikkhatayam. Sikkhatayam are the Adisila, Adichitta, and Adipanya. I haven't come across that word Sikkhatayam before, but that's referred to. Most people are of course, we're referring there to the development of understanding, but we have, for example, in the first precept, when people say Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadam, there is a training, but that doesn't have to be, of course, that type of sikkha, that sikkhapadam there, doesn't have to be, of course, anything to do with satipatthana. So that was helpful, that word there, Tanajan, as a reminder that sikkha can have that meaning of development of the reality, an understanding of the reality that appears, or can have this idea, this very conceptual idea of refraining from harming, which is also embodied in that training precept of walking in the way of non-harming. So we can see that sikkha can have, like many words really, they can have different levels of understanding. And if they're not understood correctly, then that will be problematic in the development of understanding.
Is sikkha just to be remembered and to be one's behavior?
Not just remembered, Ajahn, it's to be understood. That's how I understand what you were telling us before. The sikkhatayam are about the development of understanding, as opposed to sikkha, as it often is conventionally understood as a type of training, be it in the precepts or otherwise.
That's why we can use many different words to understand the truth, stage by stage, from none at all to fully understanding of it. Right now, there is seeing, and there is no experiencing the nature which experience, which is the seeing at all. Just talk about it. But at this moment of seeing, the reality of that which has no shape and form just arise and experience the object which is seen. That's all. Is that not sikkha? Learn to understand little by little, not just sit and think about the word. That sikkha is that. Sila sikkha is that. Chitta sikkha is that. But it's the moment of understanding that there's no one and no thing. This is the most important point of the teaching, from the I until there is no I at all, completely eradicated. That's why right understanding begins to, whatever you call, understand little by little, that actually, even from hearing, is it enough confidence of what is there as not a person or a thing at all. Even it's true, it has to go on and on and on to realize the truth at moment of letting go the idea of self, of thing, because beginning to understand the truth of what is there as it is, that which is seen. And in a day, how many moments of not forgetful to understand the truth of that very moment as no one there at all. And that has to be understood little by little, moment to moment. Bhavana, see, sikkha, not just the word, but the moment it's there, studying and understanding. At moment of abstaining from ill deeds, without right understanding, it is sila, but no, not sila sikkha, no understanding of that moment as it is, no one and what is there, the Dhamma or the Rupa, the truth that is conditioned and then it's gone. See, all of this has to be developed or understood little by little, the truth of what is there. No matter what is used in Pali, sikkha, training or developing or what. So now it depends on you, what word you prefer to use to understand by yourself or by the others too. depending on that understanding. But it's not just like try to do something with the idea that I can do or I will try. But is there any understanding? Try what? Do what? For what? Even at this moment, listening to understand what is there as it is, no one and nothing, to be very firm, confidence of the truth, never change. Satya, it can be understood, it can be realized, it can be discerned, the truth, because it's there. It arises, different ones, different nimitta, but only one can be understood directly, little by little, when time comes, when there are more conditions for its arising, which is a firm confidence of the truth that it can be known when it's there, right now, little by little, not by oneself, but by understanding a little more, a little more, a little more, until there can be a moment in life anytime. It can arise by conditions to be ready to understand what is there, even thinking about it, but not just in word, but at that very moment when a reality is there. For example, it's not thinking about hardness, that it's conditioned to arise and it's gone, but at moment of touching, is there any even thinking that it's just that which can be known only? At that moment, nothing can be known, only that which appears only. This is the way it begins to understand more and more, a little more and more, until it can let go whatever is there in life. No, not particular moment, but any moment by conditions, to understand and have more confidence of the truth of no one and all thing, which is the meaning of anatta. No one and no thing. Hardness is there. No body, no one, no thing. And then it's different from other one, because letting go the idea of something which is there all the time, or the attachment to what is there because of ignorance all the time, to begin to understand moment to moment, little by little, even if so very little, not many moments in a day, but it's the beginning to understand by oneself that it's from hearing again and again and again, understanding a little more, a little more, a little more, until it can be conditioned to the moment of thinking, even thinking about no one at moment of hardness appearing, no one at moment of hearing. So it can attain or become closer and closer to the moment of hearing. And then there can be the other understanding of the next one, which is quite far apart. Because even now, how many citta arising and falling away in between seeing and hearing, see? Unknown, but it can be directly, little by little, to pay attention, to have attention arising at that very moment, to begin to understand, and then later it can be directly aware with more understanding of that object. In life, daily life, by conditions. Otherwise, there cannot be the understanding of what is meant by anatta, uncontrollable by conditions. What is there arises and falls away instantly. Very, very daily life. And right understanding has to understand what is there in daily life. Not as one try to be Otherwise, there cannot be the understanding of the moment of anatta-ness. Whatever arises is by conditioned. And what would be next moment is unknown, anatta, beyond expectation. That's why Buddha taught or said after his enlightenment, Dhamma is so very subtle to remind everyone who now sees and hears, so very subtle.
Yes, I think there are very many common ideas. I think this came up in one of the Vietnamese discussions. People have the idea that following the precepts or the training, the Sika, means resolving not to steal, not to kill, and so on. And they take this as the training. But of course, the training has to come back to a moment, so at a moment of wholesome restraint from not harming. It is sila, but it can only be Sika, can only be the training at those moments when there is understanding that even that restraint at that moment is not anyone who does anything. So it's quite different from the idea of I will follow the precepts or I will observe this particular training, because it has to come back to the moments of understanding right now, whenever there is an opportunity. Without understanding, it can't be any kind of Sika at all.
And because their realities are so very subtle, that's why we would think always what Buddha said about that, not our own thought, but the truth is there in his words about whatever is there right now as seeing. What is seeing? No idea, never think or thought about it at all. But it's there, see, by conditions. And it's the reality which experiences. So how can it be anyone or anything else? Impossible, because it's only that which arises to experience, only one object at a time, and gone, changing all the time, from moment to other moment, and never come back after it has gone.
When we read these different things in the text, even about seeing or about precepts or anything, so quickly there can be the idea of what shall I do? How shall I observe the precepts? How shall I be aware of realities? So we can see that this is where Silabhata Paramasa, or whatever anyone would like to call it, moments of wrong practice can come in anytime there's the idea of I doing something to follow, to train, to understand, because it's not the understanding at this moment of just the seeing or just the hearing or the kusala citta or akusala citta, whatever appears.
And as long as it's not the understanding of this very moment as it is, it's impossible to realize the truth of it, which arises and falls away instantly at all. So it's just the word of thought all the time. But the point is to understand, to realize the truth, because Buddha had taught about what is there as it is, that can be known directly when there is more understanding, which let go attachment to what is there now, because there is seeing, and without as aswa, bhava, sawa, it doesn't experience anything as it is like seeing or anything at all. Even so, it's bhavasava, just what is there is that which experiences because at that moment, the object of the moment of that does not appear. What is there is only a reality. And we don't have to call it the experiencing, but it experiences. So it can be a moment of understanding the truth of it. But when there's not enough confidence from hearing and considering, how can there be the understanding of that very object which is there as not self? Even it's there anytime. Just that which experiences is there. Just that which feels is there. Just that which remember is there. But no understanding even is there. Like now. That's why even the object is there. It is the object of ignorance. But it can be object of understanding that it is conditioned to arise and gone instantly. To have firm confidence of the truth, satya parami, truthful to the truth. The truth cannot be changed. And adidana, the confidence, no change, that is so true. So it can be directly experienced when time comes, when panya let go the other clinging and ignorance of the other object. Only that one can be object of understanding clear. But as long as there are ignorance of this and that all the time, how can there be the clear understanding of the object? Because they are together, many things. But when it appears as just only one, the characteristic of that can be object of understanding when there are enough confidence of the truth from learning about it. No one there, and it's no one, because what is there is there. No matter what it is, unexpectedly. And no matter what you call it, it is this, from nothing at all of understanding the truth until it can be a little more understanding intellectually, but it can be directly understanding of this which is now appearing by conditions to understand more about what is meant by anatta, not the word, but the truth. No one there at all. What is that is that? And only that, and then gone. Shall we use the term develop now? Or training by such and such reality, not by anyone at all.
I think we can probably agree, Tanajan, that some words can be helpful and at the same time they can be misleading. So I think it's always going to depend upon our understanding of what the truth of that word represents. And that's not always an easy thing to figure out. So we have to be patient and listen carefully. And, I know that, and I've said this before, but I always appreciate, you helping me and many others to appreciate the very great subtlety of Dhamma, which is only appreciated, I think, after quite a while of very careful consideration. And that's like all the words we hear, we have to consider them very carefully. If we don't consider them very carefully, there sometimes can be problems. So I appreciate, your ongoing patience and, of course, understanding of the Dhamma to help us appreciate it more and more and more. And we know that's truly the greatest gift that anybody can give. We all value that.
And that's the word of the Buddha. Every word just condition the understanding of what is there as it is, little by little, until it's so clear to be understood directly as it is. Because it's there. No one has made it to arise at all.
Yeah, and I always appreciate that reminder, Tanajan, that Dhamma is just the way it is. It's either kusala or akusala. It's just the way it is. It's just how it appears. I think it was Sarah who said, I thought was quite helpful earlier on, another talk, I believe it was, when the Dhamma is just about the realities that appear, essentially. And that's for us to understand or take it as we like. But it's nothing, we can't, some people, of course, we call it Buddhism, and of course that's relevant and that's true. But if we neglect to apply the understanding to the realities that appear, then we will miss what the nature of Dhamma is all about. And it's, I think, so easy to overlook that aspect of it. So it's always helpful to be reminded just what is Dhamma. And often I think we can be tricked into thinking that what is Dhamma is not really Dhamma. So it takes a lot of careful consideration and gradual and a lot of patience to slowly start to understand what is true and what is not true.
And that's the teaching of the Buddha, how to understand that which is now appearing.
And of course, John, when we say the word how, I believe I understand what you mean, but I think that can be understood usually as Kun Tzu Kin touched on earlier on, as something that we do. How can I understand? And so that helps us to appreciate how subtle the Dhamma is. It's not something that we can figure out as individual people, but it's something that has to be understood, and that's not easy. If someone, just perhaps, I know it's getting towards the end of our time with you, Tanajan, when someone would ask you, how to understand the teachings, how would you answer that?
Without the teachings of the Buddha about it, can anyone only just think about the truth? Even the truth cannot be thought about. What is true at this very moment? See, no one can imagine at all.
Mm. Mm.
That's why we understand what's meant by the word or the name Buddha. And one begins to understand about each word comes from the enlightenment of the truth. Otherwise, it cannot be taught as it's so true as the absolute truth. No one who can hear this word or think about it without understanding what's meant by the Buddha. No one, even him, or any time at all. Without understanding what is there now, can there be a moment of understanding what is meant by Buddha?
Certainly not, Tanajan.
Mm-hmm. Enlightened, not just think about it or roughly take it for no one. That's not enough. No one. So what is it? Because it's there. That's why Buddha taught for 45 years to support the understanding from hearing again and again and again, to be closer to the truth of what is there now. No need to go away to find out, to look for it, but because it's there now, anytime it's there. And when use
I think that,
sati.
I think that's a very good point, Tanajan. I think you've made it very clear for us that it's something we don't have to go out and look for. It appears at any particular moment. And I think when you say that, it makes an absurdity of the idea that you have to do something or go somewhere. We don't have to go anywhere to find it. There are always Dhammas wherever we are. And I think because of our, well, obviously because of our wrong understanding and different levels of ditthi, we think we have to do something. And that can obviously be very unhelpful and very misleading, but many people still do it. And many teachers, should we say, call them, are still teaching it. And that's not helpful. So it's always up for us to consider very carefully that you don't have to go and find the Dhamma, it appears.
That's right. Each word of the teaching is so very profound. For example, anatta, see, just one word. From the very beginning to the end, at any time, see, so true. But it doesn't appear yet because right understanding is not strong enough because of the accumulation of ignorance and attachment. So very enormous, eons and eons ago, conditioned such and such thinking or no interest in understanding the truth. Even is there no accumulation to understand it. Just let it be as by conditions, as something accumulated with ignorance all the time.
I think, Tanajan, you once used the expression that ignorance is very sticky. And
Yeah.
I find that very helpful because I'm inclined to agree that, of course, I think of kauneo, and it's very sticky. It adheres to your fingers very easily. So the analogy is very appropriate, and it's not easy to separate ignorance from panya because ignorance is so sticky.
Otherwise, one thing that one understand what it is, but it's not the moment of understanding the truth of it, as it is only one characteristic. So it cannot be other thing. It cannot be taken for any other thing at all. Hardness is there. No body, no world at all. When it is the object of clear understanding of it as a reality, which is hard only to let go the idea of thing and people and whatever has been taken. And that is so true. That's why the teachings of the Buddha condition more confidence of it can be directly experienced because hardness is there. Nothing is there when hardness is there. So ignorance does not understand it. It's conditioned to arise and fall away instantly. But in truth, it's only there when it appears, but not more when it does not appear. Otherwise, that is the idea of thinking about things from that hardness and then keep on thinking that it's there all the time. So thinking is not moment of experiencing the moment which is hard appearing. Hardness is there, see? And gone, no attention, no understanding, something all the time. That's why it's so very subtle. And this is the word of the Buddha. If there is a clear understanding of how subtle it is, right understanding develops with the idea of no one and no one, little by little. Because even right now, what is saying something, many things, how subtle it is. But right understanding of it is that which is seen, can be en route, that no one there. Only that is experienced, is seen, and then gone. other moment is not moment of seeing that object. And what is there? The characteristic which experiences an object are now so many different moments. No one knows until Buddha pointed out the moment of birth is not the next moment, different function, because it cannot perform the function of arising after death moment at all, only once in lifetime. But what about the other moments by conditions? Arise to be born as a person, a being, what else? The result of the same karma. It has to see, to hear, to experience different objects through the sense or as vipaka. See, just to support the understanding, to let go the idea of self until it's time of direct understanding with direct awareness of an object only, and begin to know what we have learned about it. For example, we talk a lot about hardness, but it's not the moment of understanding it with direct awareness of hardness when it's there. Much different. Just talk about it. But it's not the moment of begin to understand the characteristic which cannot be taken for anything at all, because it's only hardness experienced one by one. The other moment is not hardness. It can be any object by conditions to be known that they are not the same characteristic, different ones by conditions, and only very shortly is there to be known and then gone, never to arise again. The truth is the truth. No expectation to have no wrong understanding and no silapata pramasa, because it's just the word. And there are many different stages of attachment and ignorance as aswa or as khanda, sanyoja, all are in daily life. This very moment and other moment too appears to ignorance when there's no understanding of that very moment object, which, as we have learned, no matter when, lopa, attachment, no one can stop its arising, it's there, depending on understanding the truth or no understanding and taking it for, I am so attached to that very object. And how can I have, how can't I have the attachment? It's impossible, because whatever is there is by conditions accumulated, different ones, different person, never be the same at all, and then gone from life to life, can never understand what is there if there's no word from the enlightenment. That's why we understand what it's meant by enlightenment. It's not just think about it, because as much as it can be thought, it's not as clear as when it's there. And how can it be directly experienced with such understanding? The understanding has to, what we say, develop or getting more and more and more to be able to understand what is there as soon as when it's there only. And this is the point of listening to each word of the truth, to know that what is true is so true now. But it's not the direct experience of a reality, only one reality at a time, to see it clearly, because it is there only one. When there are so many things together, it's impossible to know what is what clearly. So even in a moment, there is that which experiences the object, and there are not only one reality which experiences that object, other reality together with seeing, but seeing is the chief of experiencing the characteristic of the object, while the other mental factor arising experience the same object, but different function, because the function of experiencing the object clearly is citta, but the cetasika, the mental factor, experience the same object, but it has its own characteristic. It is attached instantly, or its ignorance of the truth right there, instantly. Who can do that? No one there at all. Only conditions to understand the difference between this and this and this, citta and cetasikas and different cetasikas, and rupa, that which cannot experience anything. Now, see, that which is seen cannot experience anything. But that which experiences is citta and cetasika together as conditions. Who arranged that to make that? It's the way it is. Dhammatta, see, the way it is. Citta arises, experience the object. It does know the cetasika which arise with it or together with it. And cetasika arises to attach, and ignorance arises, not understanding the truth. And there are other mental factors too, who knows, but it's there by conditions to be considered about each one as it is, the way it arises and perform its function, or not perform any function at all, like rupa, see. The characteristic of each one has its own characteristic, but it cannot experience anything at all. And this is life, what we call life, what we take it for I, from life to life. So very, very enormous, that is so sticky that no one can make it different from the way it is when there's no understanding of each one as it is. Even there is the understanding of the four primary rupas, but no one can separate it at all. Inseparable, the way it is. And when there is the smell, no one knows that there must be the four primary rupas, but what is there? Experience is only one object, the smell, see. Know nothing about it, just take it for fish or juice or whatever. So ignorance there, how much, how strong, from moment to moment, adding more and more and more ignorance and attachment. That's why only right understanding, which can experience the truth, can let go the idea of self, which is so very deep and very sticky, to let go just very little until it is clear understanding, clear comprehension of that which is there, which we use the different word vipassana, not ordinary understanding at any level of intellectual level, or the patipatti beginning is different from when it has developed enough to understand instantly by conditions, by hearing and considering the truth right now from moment to moment. Each one is a condition for the next one to arise, to the moment of enlightened the truth of that which is there as usual. But what is different is the understanding instead of ignorance. So it's exactly the same. No change by the self trying to do this and that. Even that is a reality, wrong understanding. So I think that it's time.
Yes, Sapti Kajan.
Thank you very much, Tina Jan.
Thank you very much.
Mark